All right. I call this meeting to order at 2:05 p.m. on Sunday, October 27th, 2024. May all members of the committee please state their name for the record.
Matthew Bravo.
Ali Hunley.
Andrew Savash.
Nora Bolsworthy.
Emma Fullerton.
Austin Britton.
Aaron Rubai is chair. I'm also Andrew is our clerk for the day, so you can write that down. And then any other members of the public? Thank you. All right, with 7 members present, quorum has been established. We are now in line for SSB 2024-1717. An author or sponsor is present. You have 5 minutes to present. Wait, who would like to do the timer today?
I do it.
Sweet. All right, you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this one has been sitting here for a little bit of time here. If you guys notice, it is Section 3, Volume 1 of this big guide thing, which started in the summer. A lot of them have either been sitting and they didn't make it through to dish, or they were tabled, and I've made some amendments to them, so they're kind of all over the place in terms of where they're at. This one in specific is in regards to LGBTQ history. So it goes through some of the laws that have been passed at a state level, and kind of touches on what they do at a very broad level. We've had discussions on this sort of stuff for some of my other legislations, and I've tried at certain points to make this very much like this is what the bill does versus speculation. So if there are parts where it gets close to that speculation, I'm happy to have a discussion on removing those and making sure we're sticking to the text itself. These were written a couple months ago, so some of these things should be in date. I did not spend a long time reviewing them very heavily, so if I'm a little bit out of touch, I'm happy to have those discussions. But it just kind of goes through these legislations over the past few years in specific, 2021 to 2024, what they do, how they affect LGBTQ individuals and the community at large, and then goes further into the Senate supporting this community at large, supports, improvement to mental health, to this community, and making sure that we are open and inclusive. And there's a little bit on, like gender neutral bathrooms and just like these very specific things, but in most cases it's very broad. Like we give the support. We want the University of Florida to provide resources to help combat any negative mental health impacts. There's also, I know a couple of these things are a little out of date. Obviously the sponsors will have to modify and make sure we have the correct senators in there. Most of them are still senators, but we'll just remove the ones that aren't there. I welcome you guys' comments and discussions on this, and I yield the rest of my time.
All right, we're now in line for 5 minutes of questions and answers, beginning now.
There's a whereas clause towards the bottom of, I believe it's the first page, I think it's the fourth to the bottom. It talks about allowing healthcare providers and insurance providers to discriminate. Do you mean in terms of legal discrimination?
What do you mean by?
Like you're saying that this legislation allows for legal discrimination in the state of Florida, and I was just wondering if you could expound on that.
So the term discrimination there was based off of, I think, a separate analysis where someone was analyzing the bill, and they said it could allow for people to quote-unquote discriminate based off of their position within the LGBTQ community. So it allows for these medical professionals to make that call based off of if they're in that community or not, based off of their own feelings on that. If you think that's a step too far, I'm happy to remove that to make sure it stays firm with what it is. The term discrimination is obviously a term we throw out all the time, but it has different ramifications, so I can understand if that is maybe not the proper term at the very least to use there.
I have a question about the third to the bottom of the first page, whereas clause about directing the Board of Governors to remove the majors and minors related to this. When you're talking about directing, is this ordering them or mandating them? Because I feel like that's a little bit of a slippery slope when involving a larger legislative body.
Yeah, so again, it's been a couple of months, so I'm a little bit rusty on a couple of these things, but I believe the legislation was worked to remove those majors and minors related to those specific aspects. and the Board of Governors, their job is to enforce those laws and make sure that those majors are not allowed, that they are removed. So I believe it does, indirectly or directly say that they need to look at those majors and minors and work on removing them. But again, I'm a little bit rusty on a couple of those things, but I believe that that's what it does. Yes. I think that's based off of the ACLU analysis of the bill on directing the removal of those.
For the let it be resolved clause that states that the University of Florida Student Senate encourages the university to promote open and inclusive discussions on race, gender, and sexual orientation in workplace and in educational settings while seeking ways to legally navigate state-imposed restrictions. How exactly did you intend for, as a student senate, to encourage the university to do these things without any legal implications that would follow with that?
I think it comes back to the student senate and the student government at large. I think obviously our student body president has a discussion with the board of trustees to talk about how we can navigate those sort of things. And I wanted to make it very clear within that doctrine or that phrase that it's not saying we should ever go against state law or anything like that. We want to make sure that we are having people look at how can we continue having these discussions and making sure these people feel involved and we have that education without ever approaching the topic of are we having to go against state law. We're following the law, but what can we do to make sure that we are still giving education on those sort of communities?
What does that education look like to you, being in compliance with the state law that the university can do?
For me specifically, I'm not sure what that would look like. I think when it comes to that sort of education, I think it would be up to people who know the law much better than me to say, is education something we can still have in the classroom, or is education supporting student orgs that promote education in more of a broader sense to the community? And I would think whichever way would be most in compliance with state law first off of and be the most effective, I think is a good way forward.
Would you be open to further clarifying the way you want to have the student body president be advocating for these things in this? Would you be open to adding more clarity on how? Because I feel like that would further prevent any legal implication if you were specific on how you would want that individual to be advocating for these things to the Board of Governors.
Yeah, I'd definitely be open to something like that. I think with this one, it's approaching that limit that I picked before where it's just too long. So it's some of those things where it can be very broad topic and going into the specifics.
All right, that is time. We are now in line for 5 minutes of debate, beginning now.
Well, the biggest thing that I have here, and this is something that, this was one of the bills we talked about over summer, actually.
It is, yeah.
And so, and you remember my take on some of this, is that towards that section I talked about earlier, specifically, there's a couple others in here, but saying that the legislation allows for healthcare providers and insurers to discriminate and permits discrimination in hiring can open us up to a lot of different legal implications, right? When you talk about slander or libel lawsuits coming from the state, right? It'd be the same thing if you or I got some complaint that we were discriminating, right, in our hiring if we owned a business.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to want to defend ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm happy just to remove that clause entirely and making sure we're not approaching that sort of that process. Because I think I can agree with the word discrimination. We throw out a lot, and I think using it here is not the best case. I think with how broad this is already, I don't think it would add much or remove much to get rid of it. So,
Okay. Would you be okay with, I guess, then fine-tuning some other parts of the bill as well? I mean, obviously depending on the parts we talked about.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if at the end of the day we table this and I get some notes on making sure we improve this, make sure it's proper, I'm okay with that. This has been sitting for a couple months, an extra week or two is not going to make a big difference to me. So I'm happy to have those discussions and notes so I can go back and making sure we get it right if we pass this.
Yeah, I do want to point out that the source on that whereas clause links the legislation. It's not the external opinion of that uses any sort of the word discriminates. So either that's the incorrect source or that's it doesn't support anyway. That I don't think that would. There's nothing in here that I see that uses that word, discriminate, that would allow it to be used in this context unless it was a quotation. And either way, I still think it's probably a bad idea to use that. A few more things. I just want to ask about, like, in the last whereas clause on the first page, the denies legal existence part. I'm not sure if that fits in this whereas clause. I think the requirement itself is enough. I don't know if that is a statement of fact or opinion. I know that was brought up before. I don't know what that really means, I guess.
So you would have that clarified more to just say this
That it
legislation
requires, yeah.
I can see that, and I
Yeah.
can agree with that, yeah.
Same with the word inhumane. Despite my or others' personal beliefs, I do believe that is an opinion. At least the adjective itself is, and I don't think that should probably be included.
Yeah, and I think I've done this before where I've just
Yeah.
added extra adjectives for letting my emotions kind of go into there, and I think I can definitely fine-tune some of those points to make sure it is sticking to those sort of sources.
Yeah.
So just some format things, like in the proviso, we have, you would have to just change who the current president of the university is, right?
Yes.
We would probably have to get rid of some of the people in the proviso, just because there's not a chance to be honest, some of them would read it.
Yeah.
But there are others in here, like I think, Cassier Benz, definitely the LGBTQ affairs director, Plant Student Union director. Those are all fine, but just some fine tuning with that as well.
Is there a particular reason you ask for the expansion of programs in, I don't know what number, therefore clause that is, but I believe it's the fourth, to maintain and expand programs related to, rather than just maintain?
And that may be getting closer to my opinion on this, but I believe maintaining is a great way to keep the status quo, but I think that there is always room for improvement, and so that's why I also promoted for the expansion, just to make sure that those programs are doing better than we have done before, to make sure that they can be as helpful as possible.
Okay.
Summation that you're good with table and editing this for later.
Yeah.
I submitted all of these kind of as a base level because I wanted to at least have this discussion and see where we're at. And with all of these, I'm happy to table and revisit and making sure that we're getting them right. They've been waiting long enough, but I want to have the Judiciary Committee's kind of opinions on these so I can make sure that I'm doing them properly.
Is there any more debate? Seeing none, we're online for 2 minutes of final privilege whenever you're ready.
Thank you guys for this conversation. Obviously there is definitely ways to improve this, and I can agree with you guys' opinions on this. And I want to make sure that when we're doing something, especially something that deals with state level legislation and how to address that, and making sure that we're doing right by our constituents, but also doing right to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in any sort of trouble, and making sure we're not saying we're going against the law, things like that. That we get it right, and I think that is a conversation that is not just me writing something and getting it right the first time. That is me writing it and then going back and readdressing it and making sure we're getting it right. So thank you guys for all of that, and I yield the rest of my time.
All right, we're now online for any motions at this time.
I move to table SSB 1717 by unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. All right.
Point of information, did
Yeah.
you receive the Women's Caucus amendment to Crystal Blitz's code revision?
Yes. Okay, so I'm about to go
Sorry,
into...
I have to go, so I'm...
No, I know.
And quick point of information, would you mind stating your name for the record?
Senator Caleb Wilson.
Thank you.
Okay, so, I think we just sent a message to Crystal about this. So, the issue is that I didn't have this, so technically it's not public noticed. So even if we were to amend something, we've not allowed that before. I remember Senator Fung did something similar. We didn't permit that because it doesn't comply with the Sunshine state statutes. So basically, this would have to wait another week. Like, this would be a submission separately. I mean, it doesn't say amendment anywhere here. I know Crystal mentioned that to me, but like,
I think.
As it was
I'm not sure
emailed?
I can send it to you.
yeah, as a resolution rather than an amendment. So
I have it here. She had said that she sent the revision to you, but
yeah, so it's either way, we wouldn't allow it by precedent, just because it's not 2 days before the meeting, and I wasn't able to send it out to all the senators.
okay, so that's through the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah.
Could you amend it on the floor as a revision?
That's a great question. Give me a second on
I
that.
think you can.
So you can amend a bill if the bill has been heard by that type of committee. It couldn't be submitted to the floor because it hasn't been heard by the committee that's assigned to hear it. So if that resolution were submitted directly to the floor, that wouldn't work, because Judiciary hasn't heard it yet. Let me look up the rules on amending from the floor. Because I wrote something about this recently, so.
Like, can you amend a change in committee?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we've failed to do that before. Look at the floor. Okay. Sorry, yeah, I'm looking for the. I have to go like Rule 14, I believe. Yeah, let me check Rule 14. I hate that I know that. I think these rules are old. I will get back to you on whether or not it can be amended on the floor.
Okay.
I'll talk to the secretaries about that.
If
yeah.
not,
If you would like to speak on it, I can lay the committee at rest, and you can just speak very quickly if you'd like to.
Sure.
Because you came all the way here.
yeah, it's kind of nice. Okay. Yeah. So this is an amendment, hopefully to Crystal Felix's revision, but it will be a resolution in support of the Yes on 4 amendment that is. Sorry, I'm looking for it. Here. So it's a resolution in support of the yes vote on Amendment 4 to restore reproductive health care in Florida, and it
My email.
describes
None of you can see
the
it.
amendment. FSU has passed this, recognizes that student government is not, non-partisan. It's non-partisan. It's not in support of a political party or anything as such. But yeah, general statement. I'm a sponsor, so I did write it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I will look at that. I think.
Otherwise, could it be, or like, is there a potential to pass it by unanimous consent on the floor?
The hard part I need to figure out. So basically, what used to happen and why I remember writing this. I don't know where it is in the codes though. I don't know why. Basically, people would submit like blank documents to give themselves an extra day or two to write a resolution or something, and we didn't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So in judiciary, this is how it works: is that you can't substantially, like, you can't, if the intent of a bill is different than the original bill, you can't just strike the whole thing and replace it. I don't know if it applies to the floor though,
Mm-hmm.
which is a great question. If it doesn't, you could do it that way, but Judish doesn't do that itself. So that would have to be by unanimous consent or not. Oh, shoot. Okay. So it wouldn't technically be an amendment from the floor. It would be an amendment. So amendments from the floor means that you don't submit it to the secretaries. That means it has to be by unanimous consent.
Yeah.
If it's an amendment, just an amendment, it has to be submitted, like emailed to the Senate secretaries and I believe the Senate president, at least by 11:59 the night before the Senate meeting, and then it's not by unanimous consent.
Okay.
So then you would be amending it on the floor, but not an amendment from the floor. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that would be the only way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
So we couldn't amend a bill, a resolution we have now, and replace it
With a completely new one, no.
in judiciary.
No.
I thought the rule was you couldn't do it on the floor. Okay.
That's a great. I don't know because I wrote that.
I
and
think your thing specifically limited from being done to the floor, on the floor,
I
not
can't-
in judiciary.
I know I can't find it.
Because I have at least one of mine I was planning on withdrawing anyways, and I'd be happy just using that as a replacement.
Yeah.
If we're allowed
Crystal.
to do that.
Crystal was going to use her
Right.
bill as well. I don't know though because we denied it for Vivian in the spring
Mm-hmm.
and over summer and another time. I remember one of them was relating to RTS.
Right.
I don't know where it is. I can't find this. So substantially similar, no. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. In Judish, though, we definitely haven't done this previously. So, I will talk to the secretaries and see if I can get an answer for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. I call the meeting back to order. We are now in line for SSB 2024-1718. An author or sponsor. Oh, you have 5 minutes to present whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so this is Section 1, Volume 3. I know we were just on Section 3, Volume 1, switching up a little bit here. So this is in relation to the unions at the University of Florida. We have GAU, we have UFF-UF, and we have United Campus Workers, which is still in the formation, organizing themselves to be a collective bargaining unit. But we do have the two main ones. We go into kind of why they're important, what do they work to do, and kind of some of the headwinds they're facing in general, not too far into the specifics of them. And then the resolutions are very simple, that we support sort of their missions, and we support the missions, their existence, the unionization efforts of UCW, and we would like the Board of Trustees to kind of help us with this sort of recognition. So it's a little bit of a shorter one, but we're not going further into the details of all of the issues facing us with some of what the later ones we're supposed to do, but kind of just like introduces them as a thing and saying we support them. And I waive the rest of my time.
All right. We are now in line for 5 minutes of question and answer. Beginning now.
Yeah, before we, if you guys are reading this, before we do that, I will question and answer myself that the last whereas clause, I would like to remove that. We've had some good discussions, and that I don't want that to be a thing where we're kind of drawing lines in the sand anywhere, so I'm happy to remove that just to make sure we stay focused to where we're at for the rest of the resolution. So.
Okay, I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's reasonable to ask for someone to support all current and future efforts? The and future just gets me a little bit.
Where is it?
Second to last whereas clause and last whereas clause.
wait. Where are we going?
The last therefore clause.
The last therefore. Sorry, I
And
was looking at the
and
last whereas clause. Sorry.
second to last as well.
I believe when it comes to the very last one, the word future makes sense because that is just exercising your collective rights, so that's more limited. Besides the word and at the very end that needs to be changed. But the second to last one, that's limited to their organizing efforts. So for me, it is very much like it's limited, but if you can see that that might draw any sort of connection because we're not saying like legal organizing efforts or anything like that, then I'm happy to remove the word future in that clause for sure, just to make sure we're staying point. I don't think the word future adds much there in my opinion, so I'm happy to remove them if that's a concern.
Are there any more questions? All right. Seeing none, we're now in line for 5 minutes of debate. Beginning now. All right.
I think that for the last clause, like the chairman said, I think it's too. We need to make it a little bit more broad because the word "all" is kind of looking at a slippery slope, and like we can't really define what all consists of and what would be contained in that, and like what the future would hold. And I feel like that could be sort of a liability in a way if we put this in writing that University of Florida is to support all, but no one knows what the parameters to all is.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that. And if that's a concern, I'm happy just remember that, making sure we're on the same page there.
Awesome.
Okay, wait, I have one really quick thing. Again, really quickly, just certain word choices in here that I believe are opinion statements. The attacks on countries of concern. I think the word attacks is probably a biased adjective there.
For that last whereas
Verb.
clause?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy to strike the entire clause. Yeah.
Okay.
I understand the word choice is not great,
Okay.
and the entire thing
Yeah.
is kind of, it doesn't do justice for anyone, and it opens us up. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
I was happy just to remove that, and the intent was for me to remove it, which is why the last whereas clause above it has the word then, and then I didn't
Okay.
have to remove the text. So.
Okay. And then,
I was just gonna say the third to last whereas clause, the statement itself, I feel kind of in the same boat about that. Not that it's an opinion statement because it's not, and it's something I agree with. But like I don't know if that's something that the university can we take a stance on that. I mean, the third to last whereas clause.
And this is for the several additional bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I didn't want to make this too long, and there were other bills that I think are also important to discuss. I think my other ones in the Guide Act really go further into some of those things. So if we want to just strike that, I think that I'm fine with that. I think if we discuss those bills and other things and we decide if they're useful or not, I'm happy with that. So.
For the second to last, let it further be resolved clause, I just have a question, not like a question, but I have a problem with the University of Florida Senate calling upon the Board of Trustees. I don't really know what that would look like. And if the student senate has the power to call upon the Board of Trustees. That's my take on it. Yeah, I don't really know what that would look like for the Senate and how we would achieve that.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't even think about kind of that organization of powers in that sort of sense. We don't have the power to call upon them to do anything, and maybe it just needs to be reworded that we call upon the University of Florida to support the current organizing efforts of these statements to make sure it's broad and we're just supporting their current efforts.
Yeah, the visa also would need to be edited.
Yes.
is there any more debate? See, actually, really quickly before we end, I do think, where's the official versus recognized? The things that were brought up in the email to us, Austin.
Yes, you mentioned I used the word
Recognized bargaining unit, recognized union. I don't know what the language is there.
Let me double check. they use the word recognize to start out with.
Also, so in here in the second to last therefore clause, I believe. Okay. Actually, no, it's not. The continued existence, the missions, and the unionization efforts. Are we talking about the unionization efforts and missions described in the resolution? Because I don't believe it talks about a mission statement in the resolution. So if we say, okay, I'll let the committee rest. For example, the student senate, because I don't think any of the senators that are not graduate students who are familiar with GAU and UFF and
Right,
UCW.
so you say the missions, we don't know what that.
Yeah, so it's hard to support a mission that you don't know. So, for example, we could state that the student senate supports the above listed efforts.
I can agree with that.
And strike the clause about missions, just because it's not listed in here.
Yep.
Or we can table it and you can add the mission. Either way.
I think that would probably make it too broad in terms of sense.
Fair.
I'm happy just to make it.
Yeah, like continued existence is one thing, but the missions aren't really here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. I call the meeting back to order. Seeing as time has expired, we now have 2 minutes of final privilege.
A lot of valid opinions, and obviously this was written a little bit ago when my perspective on a lot of these things as the chief bargainer of GAU gives me a lot of insight into GAU and the unions, but I also understand that this has to be translated to what the Senate as a whole does, and make sure that when it is sent to people within the proviso that we also have to modify, that they also understand what's going on. So I respect you guys' differing opinions on this and your different perspectives to make sure that this is proper and we get it right as we're submitting this. And I waste the rest of my time.
Hello. All right, we're now in line for any motions at this time. I'm going to go on a string here, if you all don't mind. Okay. Do I hear motions to amend SSB 2024-1718 to strike the whereas clause followed by several additional bills, the whereas clause including mentions of the countries of concern, the first therefore clause, to change the next therefore clause to strike the word further, to change the third therefore clause to state UF Student Senate supports the above listed unionization efforts of UCW, and to strike the final two therefore clauses, and to strike the first two names in the proviso and the last two names in the proviso by unanimous consent.
I want to object.
Okay.
I don't want to remove the last two therefore clauses fully.
Okay.
I'm happy to remove things regarding future organizing efforts and future endeavors and make it based off the current ones. If that works, I don't want to get rid of the clauses entirely because I think they are important.
Okay.
Calling upon the board of trustees.
I guess I'm happy to get rid of the second to last one, the very last one. I would love to have it maybe more limited to supporting or maybe just making it that the University Student Senate supports current endeavors of employees exercising their collective rights.
Okay. I remake my original motion except using the amendment to the last therefore clause stated by Senator Britton by unanimous consent. Any objections? Seeing none. Wait, I can't make that. I forgot.
So-
Sumo. Okay, thank you. Who made the motion in the end? Leah? Is that okay, cool. Any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes, and let me do this really quickly.
Point of information, the final motion struck what part of the original motion?
The only things dealing with the last therefore clause.
2.
And then I may be a little bit, I'm not great with names, but I think for the sponsors line, we have to at least remove Anamika and Isha. I know Anusha is still in the chamber, and I think Danielle is. I don't remember if Anna still is.
Is this a motion?
I'm just a point of information, I suppose, because I don't want to strike people's names if they're still in the chamber, but I want to make sure that our sponsors matches.
Is Anna Huber still in the chamber?
I can't remember. That's the only one I can't remember.
I'll check the roster.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to amend SSB 2024-1718 to change the authors and sponsors line to only those individuals that are still in Senate, and to change the now last therefore clause to state that the University of Florida Student Senate supports the above listed current endeavors of employees exercising their collective rights?
So moved.
All right, by unanimous consent, are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes.
Anna Huber is still in Senate according to the roster.
Okay.
And so is Anusha.
Anusha
Just
is,
removing
yes. I was just wasn't sure
Anamika
right
and
now.
Isha.
Okay, yeah, someone has to tell me.
So he's just removing Anamika and Isha, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Sounds good. Okay. Everyone look over it, see if I missed amending anything. Oh, wait, I forgot to check something else.
Oh, just
Mine still says Anamika.
yeah, just
Okay.
removing
And
the
Isha.
two sponsors.
I already did that, so hopefully
Oh,
it's
it hasn't
loading.
updated.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're on.
Oh wait, I forget what this was. Okay, and just want to make sure that everything on the first page linked for GAU's website. So, like in this resolution, there's things that talk about certain things currently being worked on by GAU. Those are all on the page that is directly linked.
So let me. Okay, so the link I think just takes to GAU's
Yeah.
homepage, which I did to make sure I didn't have like 30 links down there, but I still ended up doing. But all of the things about what they do is directly like, visible from like links from the homepage, but it's kind of like their history and their what the contract is and what they've gotten.
Trying to see.
With the amendments, would you remove any sources or no?
No. Yeah, there can be more sources than what's listed. And yeah, let me see if I can get this page to not exist. I hate when work does that.
Is the committee at rest or not?
Yeah. No, it's not. I call it. Okay, I lay the committee to rest. Cool. My bad. Okay. Really quickly, are you withdrawing 1719?
What is 1719?
Healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah, I will be withdrawing that one.
If you say that on the record now, then technically that counts. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. We're just
Okay.
at rest right now. So.
So when
Okay.
we go back at and
Yeah,
out of rest, you'll say that.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. And then we have 20, 21, 29. Okay. Yeah. It shouldn't be too long. I don't believe. Not too many bills. All right. Everyone good? I call the meeting back to order. We're still in line for any motions at this time.
Motion to strike name Chief Bargain or Patrick Keegan from the Proviso by unanimous consent.
I object. He's the one that GAU directly bargains with, and so for the other guy, I'd actually been sending them to him as a reference to the university support for GAU. He's the one who would be most likely to read this resolution and see that the university supports GAU and their missions.
Has Patrick Keegan ever read any of the bills we've sent?
He referenced at least one of them while I was at a bargaining session with him that he had read them and gotten his emails. So, while I'm not confident that he read all of them, he has at least read a couple of the ones we sent. So.
Alright.
Are there any more motions at this time?
I move to pass SSB 2024-1718 by unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. All right, we're now in line for. Do you have?
I move to, I'm going to withdraw 1718.
Awesome.
If
17.
you guys have any comments on it, or as it is, please let me know before I would work on that. GAU has just one substantial changes to get a grad care in the past few months since I wrote this, so I'm going to at least update it to make sure none of the statements are factually false. But I did not realize some of the things I had in there would become factually false when I resubmitted this before. So
It's okay. Yeah, I don't. That's what I was going to bring up. So.
One thing is with the first, therefore let it be resolved clause on the last page, again with calling on the Board of Trustees to respond promptly. I think that you could change the language on that, so it's less of like a demanding or in a timely manner sort of response.
okay,
Yeah.
making sure we're following
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
actually have the ability to do.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. So, seeing that resolution is withdrawn, we're now in line for SSB 2024-1720.
Okay. 1720. So this is very similar to.
Point of information, can I start a timer?
Yeah.
I'll do that now. Whenever you're ready.
Of course. So this one's very similar to 1717, but we're related specifically to academic freedom. We're probably going to go right into very much a lot of the same conversations we've already had with some of the language and stuff, and I'm happy to have a very similar conversation on that. And if it gets too much, I'm happy to table and save time and making sure that, as long as I can get feedback, I can make sure that we're doing this properly. Some of these things have quotes, some of these things I might get closer to opinions, so giving an extra perspective on that, I'm happy to have. It goes into some of the resolution or the legislation that's been passed in the previous years as it relates to academic freedom. This is very much from a union standpoint, how we view these things. I reference what the things like the Faculty Senate has done before, and what the Student Senate has done before, what other institutions have passed in regards to some of these resolutions, especially SB 266. And Yeah, and then the first thing I know, someone's already got like worked in their head here is the first therefore let it be for the resolve clause, which is, you know, very much above the Senate's pay grade, but I'm happy just to remove that, just like fully off the book. Like I understand that as I'm writing that, but once we get into those things, I'm happy to have discussions about what we're limited to and then what we were able to do. Obviously, this is a very a longer one, so I waive the rest of my time.
All right, we're now in line for 5 minutes of question and answer. Beginning now.
This was also one of the bills I think we talked about during the summer. Did you
Yeah.
make any of the proposed changes I had submitted to you? Or
I made several changes based
Okay.
off of these things. I think because we were having a conversation and I didn't write down like every single thing. I'm sure I missed some of those things, and I'm sure some of these things like are not. We obviously disagreed on some of those things as we were talking about them. So I did. This is still had substantial changes since that point, but I think that was the last time I made edits to it. So some of those things are still probably not proper, and we haven't had a further discussion on it. So as a committee, so.
the countries of concern part of I think it's the second page of the bill, the third to last whereas clause on that page. That you have a similar feeling about that as you did the countries of concern clause in the prior bill that we had looked at?
Less so on this one, because this one, that is a fact. SB 264 labels these countries as countries of concern, and this one, as opposed to the other one where we're happy to remove it, this one, that clause specifically doesn't go into anything outside of how they would affect like graduate students, and it doesn't go into like wars that are happening or things like that. This is specifically SB 264 labels them, and then what it does in terms of like hurting these students from pursuing degrees and things like that. If they're at a point where it does get into opinionations, which the last whereas clause in that case, it does use quotes, but it is more, effectively negative. I'm happy to remove this, making sure we're sticking close to that language of the bill.
Okay. Same with concerns about the wording of discrimination in some of these, right? You're okay with amending that, or?
Yes, I'm happy with that, yeah.
For the whereas clause that states the resolutions confirm political enroachment on higher education happening within the state of Florida, I feel as if we could change the wording on that so it'd be seen as less of an opinion or just the way that word is described. I just don't think that'd be
I think
best.
honestly, in my opinion, I think we could just strike that entire whereas clause. I think what I was trying to intend there, I think it would draw away from the rest of this, so I would be happy just to remove that whereas clause.
So I know there are. Is this still a question?
Yes.
Okay.
45 seconds.
Okay. Any more questions? Seeing none, we're now in line for 5 minutes of debate. Beginning now. I know there are exceptions to university spending on DEI initiatives that would contradict the whereas clause second to last on the first page. I believe this was brought up to both of us.
Yes.
I do think it's important to include those exceptions.
Yes, I'm not very versed on the exceptions themselves.
I'm not either. That's
Yeah, and this is one of those where I think I'm happy to take notes and I'm happy to table and making sure I can add those things so we're not spending an hour on this.
Okay.
But that's one of my things is I think
Okay.
I can add those things to make sure that I'm taking that feedback into account.
Okay.
For sure.
I have a thought, like how we said on the previous bill about calling upon our Board of Trustees. Is it in our power to call upon the Florida State Legislature to immediately repeal?
Yeah, and that's right. And that's like I'm happy just to remove that. That one's a little bit, I would say, a little bit above our pay grade. So I'm happy, and I would call for us to remove that regardless. I don't think it doesn't add anything to this resolution. I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait, are we in debate?
We're in debate.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think especially with some of the wording that's characterized throughout a lot of this, stuff about harmful legislation, right? And then just, again, we have to be very careful when talking about academic freedom, to not assert that the state is doing anything to reduce that, because otherwise that is a giant lawsuit waiting to happen. And then, yeah, I think as far as same with stuff in the proviso, right? including the governor, and it is not going to do anything, including the chair of the board of trustees, and it is not going to do anything. But we definitely have to be very, very, very careful, especially with this subject matter. I would argue even more so than the last couple of years we've looked at.
Yeah, and I think that's why for part of the whereas clause I leaned into what other universities and the University Faculty Senate have passed, and I'm definitely happy to take a listen and relook at those and making sure that language is matching. We're not going farther than that. We're making sure that we are. I think we need to have a conversation about these sort of bills and making sure that we are protecting academic freedom, but maybe rewording my phrasing into being not the state is attacking, but how can the University of Florida Senate protect academic freedom and say we support academic freedom. And I'm happy to take that major overhaul into account for sure.
All right. Is there any more debate? Seeing none, we're now in line for 2 minutes of final privilege whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you guys again for this. Obviously, these are one of those things where I've submitted, it's been sitting for a while. I'm happy to have these conversations and get those alternative perspectives and making sure that we are doing right by our constituents and by the Senate. And obviously, this is one of those things where these sort of bills can have really negative impacts on a lot of students, but we want to make sure as a Senate that we are saying that we want to protect academic freedom without saying, we're, trying to beat up the state of Florida that's not in our wheelhouse. So I'm happy to take these into consideration, table this, and bring it back maybe in a week or two and making sure we can have a better discussion about how that went. And I yield the rest of my time.
All right. Are there any motions at this time?
I move to table SSB 1720 by unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. We are now in line for. Is it going to load? We're now in line for SSB 2024-1721. Seeing as there is no. Yeah. Man, that's sad. We haven't had that happen in a while. All right. So, yep, 5 minutes of debate beginning now.
I think I understand the intent with this resolution. It's obviously not bad. The font is larger than I was expecting, but I think my major concern is its length, because I really want to make sure if we're submitting this to people where this tree and the culture surrounding it was very important to them, that we are showing that the Senate takes that very seriously and we are showing the respect to that. And my personal idea, the length of it does not go as far as it could have in that sort of intent, but I may be in the minority in sort of that. But that's kind of what my immediate feeling, and as I was reading this earlier, is I wish there was more, weight to it to show that we really do care about this sort of thing.
I would say that you can express a sentiment in any way, right? It can be short in summation, it can be, long and drawn out. I don't think that the length of it has anything to do with this. We can't all write as much as you, Austin.
That's good. That was just my immediate intent, and obviously mine always end up being a little bit long, but if I'm in my minority opinion on that, I'm okay with that. That's just a thought I was having I wish it was longer for myself, but hopefully for the people this is sending to, so they know it is taken very seriously here.
Yeah, believe it or not, this is actually longer than some of the resolutions that used to be submitted. This is like a pretty standard resolution length. It's just changed recently.
Okay.
Yeah. There are some formatting things that after this meeting we're not going to tolerate, and things will just immediately be tabled or failed if formatting is incorrect, because I'm quite frankly sick of it. But for this, not too difficult. Basically, we have to, I don't know why there's like 20 spaces between the first 4 lines. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, the sizing needs to be 12-point font. Other than that, looks great.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this this senator is the senator of the education, and this tree fell in Norman.
Yes.
But this tree, if believe it or not, is apparently really important. They're going to be, it's an institutional landmark. People apparently got married under this tree, so I'm very happy that this senator made it her responsibility as the senator of the school where the tree fell to write this resolution, and they're actually going to be selling the remains of the tree to build new ones for alumni, and the provost's office has already confirmed that.
Wow. Yeah.
This was announced at the last faculty senate meeting, but this tree is very important to a lot of people in the school, and I think obviously there's some format issues with the font and some concerns with the length of this resolution being sent to somebody, to the dean, but I commend this senator of the school for taking the time to write this as it is. I didn't personally know this, but this tree is very important and it's going to be auctioned off.
I think also the swiftness of this bill shows how much it is important to students and alumni, I guess, now that I heard your point. So I appreciate that.
All right. Let me do this. That just didn't work. Okay. Yeah, so technically I can fix these things. Yeah, without motions. I don't know what's up with this paragraph spacing for the titles, but oh, it's before. That's why. Okay. Wait, it's just 10 space after. Yeah, and eventually we'll be giving the legislative seminar, just so everyone knows. So
Awesome.
we can. Why is there spacing before it? So we can go over this stuff.
Yeah, I had a note I wanted to talk to you guys and ask if when that was going to be, because I've
Yeah.
been involved in doing that. So
Sounds
obviously
great.
we all
Yeah.
are, but,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
I kind of want to make a new.
It's professional.
Yeah, I think we should make a new presentation, but it still looks kind of weird. I don't know why.
With the edits, you mean?
Yeah. Well,
Is it the spacing?
That's what I'm doing on the clauses. Look at the
1.5?
first 4 clauses. I think it is.
It's probably 1.5.
Okay. I feel like something's still wrong, but it looks better.
Put it next to
Let me change that.
put it next to like one of Austin's.
Putting good spice at the top, keep it roll.
Okay. Does this look good to everyone? I could be hallucinating these issues. So
You see the-
It just looks big. I don't
Do
know
you
why.
see it the same on my screen, or does it look the same to you?
Wait, it looks better on your screen than
Yeah.
my screen. Oh, it looks much better.
okay.
good.
Are there any issues?
I don't see any issues.
Do we need to add at the end of the last whereas clause, it needs to add that. I don't know if we can make that with formatting or if we have to make
We have to make a motion for that. Okay.
Move to add then to the last whereas clause by.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes. All right. Do I hear a motion to amend to add the following names to the sponsors line? All right. Yeah. So anyone who wants to be on the sponsors line can say their name.
I move to add
Judiciary Chairman Rubai.
Rubai, myself, the clerk, Senator Austin Britton, everyone in this room to the sponsors line by unanimous consent.
Should add.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. All right. Are there any more motions at this time?
I move to pass SSB 2024-17-21 by unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. All right. We're now in line for SSB 2024-1722.
I am going to withdraw this as well. The date for
Okay.
Indigenous Peoples Day was a couple weeks ago now,
Okay.
and we are going to remake it in support of Native American Heritage Month, which is November, to make sure that we are doing that correctly. So,
All right. That has been withdrawn as well. We're now in line for SSB 2024-1723. Super fun. Okay, this is mine. So, hangers. We get 5 minutes beginning now. Yeah, I've been to 4 new senator orientations, and at a certain point, you're no longer a new senator. So all this changes is that if you have been to an orientation, you don't have to go again.
It is not saying that you know, are barred from going. You
No,
still
you could
if
go.
you may like, but I think the ridiculousness of sort of the Senate orientation process is summed up that in 3 months I've been to 3 of them. So it's pretty stupid, just to be frank.
I think that's a great point. This also makes the life of INC and R&E a lot easier
Much.
because there's no absences to deal with for existing people.
You can take specific questions from people. If
Yeah.
they're, you know, that instead of broadcasting it to a big group. So
All right. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we're on for 5 minutes of debate. Is there any debate?
I think that this is a great bill and would save a lot of time for the other committee chairs and members when counting attendance and putting on these orientations, as absences to these orientations have created a lot of commotion in the past. So I think that this is a very effective bill, and I support it.
I also think that as senators, we have many other commitments and involvements, so this could reduce barriers to being a senator, because going at 6 on a Tuesday might affect someone's normal daily schedule. So I think that this would help returning senators do their job.
I remember my second orientation was literally just her scrolling through the PowerPoint in 5 seconds,
Yeah.
Which is not effective, and it's just like a checklist thing. So if this gives less headache and making sure that we can get things done as efficiently as possible, then no reason not to change it.
All right. We're in line for 2 minutes of final privilege. Yeah, fun fact, I wrote this during the orientation. So, yep, that's all I have to say. Anything you want to add? All right, cool. We have the rest of our time. We're now in line for any motions.
I move to pass SSB 2024-1723 by unanimous consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes.
Let's go.
We are now in line for SSB 2024-1724, and oh boy, this is the last meeting where I'm going to do this. The formatting's interesting. Yeah. Okay. It's fine. Only I would know that the font titles of the rules are in Garamond, not Times New Roman.
So concerning.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do this while I'm here. We need to have a talk to everyone about this. But cool. Okay. I think this is, yeah, I don't see any formatting issues that are that bad. Okay, so we're in line for 5 minutes of debate.
Does this systematically change anything from current processes?
No, it does not.
Okay. Does this make Antonio standing up for the mics and cameras? Does that change?
Yes.
His spiel, because those are overhead cameras, right? That's what he's talking about.
he has shown passion for the overhead cameras. Not really sure
Yeah.
the
So-
situation on that.
I can give, I think, a little bit of background. Basically, currently, as it stands, we're supposed to be recording everybody,
Right.
which doesn't really make a lot of sense because it wouldn't
Like the whole chamber.
the whole chamber at the same time, which we don't have the technological capability of doing apparently, as we've been told, and it also just doesn't make sense for the live stream, because then there would be multiple live streams going at the same time.
You'd have to have someone like live mixing all of the cameras.
Yeah, so that apparently doesn't work. So this would just change that requirement so that it's no longer something that has to be met in the rules. It wouldn't functionally change anything.
I don't know if you, I'm sure you've probably seen the Florida channel, right? But it's
Yeah.
basically the only time they show cutaways of everybody in the chamber is whenever somebody's not at the front discussing anything. And that's state legislation in Florida. So for us, there's no purpose in showing everybody.
And is the word front of the chamber, is that like a recognized like area of the room, or
Yeah.
do we have to say like at the speaker's podium or at like those main tables, or can we just say front of the chamber?
Front of the chamber should work. I wouldn't say the podium because then if they're not at the podium, we technically wouldn't have to record them. So I think front is clear.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that does work. But
The INC chairman always sits the first seat on the
Yeah.
inside, so it's directly facing podium, president, and people in front.
Yeah, I just don't want someone to be like, well, I'm sitting in the front row. That's at the front of the
Oh,
chamber, right?
yeah.
I don't want like people to be
Totally understand.
pedantic about it. But if we recognize the front of the chamber and the intent is not sitting in one of the regular seats, then that makes sense to me.
okay. Let me fix the spacing. Okay. I think this looks good now. Tell me if anyone disagrees. You might have to reload the document, but
Good old Garamond.
yeah, I'll talk about this in a second after we get through this, but I'm going to have some changes to the legislative seminar, especially for format, because I spend a lot of time doing this, especially when there's a lot of bills. So, yeah. Okay. No problems with it? We're now in line for any motion at this time.
Move to pass SSB 2024-1724 by
All right. Are there any objections? Seeing none, that motion passes. Okay. Before the meeting ends, we got through everything. That is the first time in a long time. So, I want to standardize resolutions and bills and their formatting. My biggest issue is that you can't copy and paste from the codes or the rules and procedures or the Constitution. I don't know why that's the case. You can, but then it changes the formatting, and I hate that. So I'm going to ask the secretaries to figure out a way to get around that. Other than that, we have to decide on a line spacing option for resolutions because there isn't one. Font and size have already been picked out, but line spacing, paragraph spacing, bold, all that stuff needs to be addressed. And other than that, it shouldn't be too long. We're just going to tell the voting thresholds. If anyone wants to make the presentation with me, you're more than welcome to. Aaliyah and I have part of one from the spring. But I'd say we should do that in 2 weeks. Not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday.
So what's left to decide?
the
Is
following
there a
Tuesday,
bold-
we
The election.
What?
Following Tuesday's canceled for elections.
That's a great point. I forgot about that.
Right.
3 Tuesdays then.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so it's not going to be super long. Oh, that's brutal. I have an exam. Okay. Anyway, all we have to do is say the voting thresholds, how to submit legislation, when the meetings are. There's not a ton we really have to go into detail on. I want to change the focus from more of overarching view to how can you get your bills passed, your resolutions. So instead of having people focus on, okay, I need a 2/3 vote in the chamber, it's okay, I need to go to the Judiciary Committee meeting. I need to ask the opinions of members of the committee and make us more available to them so that we aren't. And formatting is a huge deal. I'm going to harp on that a lot, but it does get really, really painful. So the way legislation comes to me is in emails. So I have to download it to my computer, rename everything, make a Google folder, Google Drive, OneDrive folder for it, and then send that out. But they're not all sent the same. So, for example, I'll keep the meeting going. Some resolutions and bills that were submitted today had no names or the names were not correct, and then I have to go back and edit things. So I will say the best person ever do it was Nathaniel Pelton. He could submit 140 bills, but the formatting was always correct, so it wasn't as much of a pain. So yeah, that's the goal, because I would like to have an hour or two a week to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, And if anyone has any suggestions on file organization, I think I
Would there be
do
a
it.
way to make this easier? Like, there's got to be some way.
This is the easier way. Is
Like,
that I have
literally
this.
making files,
It-
downloading all their.
It used to be, and what they
Not
still currently
doing
do
it
is
for
they
that.
send out, like, the pro temp sends out all of the bills individually linked to the email. That's how it used to be done in Judiciary. I believe Socketh did this one time, and I was like, that's genius. So I don't think it can be any easier.
The other thing I think of is like using code to automate it, which isn't hard for renaming and adding like a specific number in order, but it wouldn't work for like fixing formatting issues or anything like that. But code renaming 100 files could be done pretty easily, but
It's hard because some of them have the correct name, but a lot of them don't. So they'll say like, what's a good example? Say for example, the Norman tree resolution said Norman tree resolution in the title.
Mhm.
The real title of that bill, of that resolution, wasn't that. So I have to put that there. So in the future, it just needs to match already.
yeah.
I don't know how you would use code to match. Anyway, that
If they have the word title in the resolution, you could open the resolution in like Python, search for the word title, pull out like the thing after. I use Python every day. That's what I
Okay.
do. And then you could automatically do that. I don't know how easy it would be in practice, but like theoretically, I can imagine the steps to do it. But
yeah.
again, unless we have like 150, I don't know how much time that would save you at the end of the day, right? When you have like 5, it'd probably be quicker to do it by hand. If you have like 50, then it might be quicker to get code to do it. But
Okay.
it still would fix formatting either way.
Yeah, I'll see if I can. I don't know enough. I know a little Python, but not enough to do that. Okay, so which bills passed today? That would be 17, 18, 21, 23, 24. 17, 18, 17, 21.
17, 18 passed. 20 passed. 21 passed.
20 was tabled,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, 20 was tabled.
20 was
Yeah, 20
Tabled, yeah.
yes, and then 21.
Was passed.
Okay,
Yes.
and then 23 and 24 also passed.
23 passed. 24 passed. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, are there any motions at this time?
Motion to adjourn. News consent.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, I adjourn this meeting at 3:18 p.m. on Sunday, October 27, 2024. Thank you, everyone.
Great.